Hello and welcome to Ticket Manager's All Access Interview Series, engaging leaders from across the sports marketing spectrum to identify and explore critical issues in the business of sports, entertainment, sponsorship, activation, ticketing, hospitality, and more. I'm your host, Jim Andrews. Joining me on this episode to share a really interesting story of a B2B marketer that decided to enter sports marketing just 13 months ago and is quickly making its mark is Jim Overbeck, Senior Vice President of Marketing for Enterprise Security Leader Fortinet. Welcome, Jim. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jim.
I think it's fair to say, and you can tell me, that in terms of sports marketing and sponsorships, at least, Fortinet has really gone from 0 to 60 in the last year or so. Really had, not much of a presence in sports. And now you're the title sponsor of the Fortinet Championship on the PGA Tour. You've launched an 18-stop experiential series leading up to that event with other stops on the tour. You've signed Tour Pro Max Homa. You've added event partnerships in other parts of the world. So let's just kind of go back and have you share with us just why you and the company made the decision to kind of jump into sports marketing with both feet.
We certainly did. It's a great question how we got to this point. So, I'm in my 19th year at Fortinet right now. So I can tell you the first 17 years, we really didn't do much by way of sports marketing, to be honest with you. I think the biggest thing we had done was overseas. We had a Formula E car, which was a BMW Formula E series car. We put our name on the front wing there, and so it's going 200 something miles an hour. There went our logo, right? So that was but we were excited about it. We put pictures all over LinkedIn and social media and everything and said, hey, we're in sports marketing, but really we were one sticker of many on a car, but you got to start somewhere, right? And so
absolutely.
After 16 years of running sales and engineering over here, I kind of made a switch and worked with Ken Z, our CEO, and said, we kind of moved into marketing. Caught a lot of people by surprise, but the idea there is, how do we do the hard things right at Fortinet? We ship more firewalls than anybody in the world. We're number one in zero-day discoveries. We do all these really hard things right, but the easy part of making sure everybody knows, which I would consider relatively easy, is never been really our forte. So I told Ken, I'll run marketing, but we need to go out and we need to go big, right? We really need to get our name out there. And so there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And I was getting my feet wet in 2020. It was my first year in marketing running for North America. And I started thinking conceptually, what do we need to do? Once I really understood the marketing world more as far as within Fortinet. And for whatever reason, golf was kind of in my head. And I was doing a lot of research, and it seemed to be that was our target audience specifically in the US. And so I received a phone call. This goes back January 2021, so about 13 months ago. And I received, it was January 14th. I remember the day. And it was a person was calling me, asking me about Andretti Motorsports. To do something with that and Indy 500 or whatever. And I just said, honestly, thanks, but no thanks. If we're going to do anything, and by the way, I had no budget for any big projects, interestingly enough, but I was told, we need to grow the US. We want to grow by at least 30% year over year. And so to do that was going to take a sizable investment. We knew that. I told the gentleman, I said, do you have anything golf related? And that's when he comes back and says, I think there's something with the Safeway Open and Napa might be coming available. And honestly, I like golf, but I'm not a golf insider by any stretch. I'm not one of those people that just knows the ins and outs of everything about it. And so, I had to Google and Safeway Open, what is that? And start looking at, okay, I got it, Napa. And that's kind of where it started. And really, it was an idea. And I thought, okay, to have our own tour stop would be interesting. And so I'm a member of our executive staff as well. So we have every Monday, the top 12 people get together and we kind of discuss ideas. And I kind of threw it out there. I knew it wasn't going to be a green light, right? It was red. Hey, Jim, stop. You're in, it's not going anywhere. Or I was looking for maybe just a yellow of just go explore. And so really I did get that yellow. And so that's kind of that was the genesis of this entire sports marketing wave we're on right now. So we started out with the Fortinet Championship, and around the same time over in Europe, they were doing a racing sailing boat as well that had Fortinet's name on it, and that was starting to get a little bit bigger than the wing of a race car. Then you get the sailboat. Now we're starting to get into the Fortinet Championship, starting to take shape, and then it's just kind of really spread because each one of these is generated the desired impact. And so lo and behold, to your point, now we have the 18 tour stop that we call the drive to the Fortinet Championship. I can probably talk about a little bit about that later. We also have signed Max Homa, who won our tournament this year. He's a California local kid. We're headquartered in California, right outside San Jose and Sunnyvale. We now have in Australia, we sponsored the PGA Championship in Australia. In Europe now, we are the official cybersecurity partner of the DP World Tour. It used to be called the European Tour. And working on some other stuff right now too. I was just on a call about Canada. So there's a lot more coming around Fortinet, sports marketing, and golf, and other things too. I think they did rugby, did some rugby stuff. So what it did, I think, is it opened up sort of Pandora's box of what's possible if we invest in this realm, and we're seeing the returns definitely. And now we're starting to see more and more. But it's one of those things, is sports marketing can go 1,000 different directions. So you could spend every dollar in the world trying to do sports marketing. So for us, it's about trying to spend it more wisely. But yeah, the last 13 months, if you'd have told me back in the beginning of last January, I'd be sitting here talking to you right now about all of these different initiatives I just talked about. I'd have bet heavily against you.
Well, and I think for me, it's always exciting to talk to a company and people that are at that early stage, right? Partly because I've been doing it for so long. It's nice to see people who are unjaded yet by a bad experience, and so far yours have been good. So I'd love to go a little bit deeper into that. And the first thing that comes to mind too is, and I think with all good deals in our industry and other, there's a little bit of good fortune along with all the hard work and research. And it sounds like that might be the case a little bit in the fact that you'd identified golf, but fortunate that a title sponsorship of a PGA Tour event in a part of the world, as you said, up the road from your headquarters in Sunnyvale up to Napa, really great timing that it was available after years of being the Safeway Open.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it's better to be lucky than good, right? So we not only was it 80 miles from our headquarters from Sunnyvale to Napa. Napa's a global destination, right? It's a known destination for all that it offers. And so for us, I think that's important. You can have a tour stop. There's some tour stops. I won't name names, but there's some that are in less than desirable areas, if you will, of the country where you need a tow truck to get people to go there. So Napa's not an arm twister. We'll go with that. But also think about what we were signing up for. We signed up in the middle of COVID, right? So we're signing up for a in-person sports event in the middle of a pandemic, which is interesting timing. Yeah. And the reason I say that Napa was fortuitous for us and is because we were able to pull this entire thing off. We did more than just the tournament. The tournament itself is great, right? But what we also did was put in an entire security summit. We brought out our top 400 plus customers, our top 200 well, 35 partners, but when you add all the people who came out, it's about 200 people. And we were able to do it. We were able to offer this entire experience in an open air format. And the reason we were able to do it is because of the moderate temperature of Napa. Sure. And so we were able to leverage the food, the wine, the golf, the everything that Napa has to offer as the backdrop to an amazing technology summit where we had these people sitting through full day symposiums with some of the top, genius mind speakers of technology and security in the world, and have our vendor expo open air in these tents and stuff. So we were able to pull off a vision that, to be honest, I celebrated signing this contract for 5 minutes. It took us 52 days from start to finish. We signed it right at the end of March. And I think we set some sort of PGA record, which I'm not sure. I'm looking back, I think we were happy we set it. Now I'm like, I'm not sure it was a great idea. But we celebrated for 5 minutes. Oh, we're going to have the Fortinet Championship. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, we have 5.5 months to not only throw a PGA, world-class level tournament that would represent our brand the way we want it to be represented, but we also have to put together this entire security technology conference summit at the same time. And we had to figure a whole lot out. So the next 5.5 months were a whirlwind, not a whole lot of sleep, but I can tell you that what we pulled off in that amount of time, and it was the strength of the team. We had a heck of a team we worked with to pull this together, and Fortinet did not have in-house sports marketing expertise, right? We just didn't, right? So we had that was another thing we got really lucky on. was early on, right out of the gate. I got hooked up with a company, Jason Wolf from Wolf Solutions, and they are really our trusted advisor from a sports marketing perspective now globally. They worked on the DP World Tour stuff with us. They worked on, they handle the whole drive. They handle the PGA, the Max Homa contract. So all of that stuff that we've done, you have to have someone that knows what they're doing. So that was the shortcut to success, but it worked out really well.
I want to go back and talk about what happened before those 52 days when you got the yellow light, which was, hey, there may be something here, but we need to know more, and we need you. I'm imagining to build kind of the business case for why we should do this. So can you talk a little bit about that? Obviously, I'm sure the thinking about the summit and all played into that, but just how did you go from kind of yellow light to green light?
Honestly, I'm not sure the light was yellow. I think it was a dark shade of orange. it had a little yellow in it, but there was a lot of red in there too. But I think the executives, and they've been so supportive. Keith, our CFO, Ken, CEO, his co-founder brother, Michael, our CTO, my boss, our CMO, John, so supportive. And I think they realized it was time for us to take that next step. So they had a bit of faith in me over history to be able to pull off some things. And so what I made a deal with them is I went and did a lot of research. I started calling, and one thing I would strongly recommend is, if you don't know the answer, find a lot of people that have walked the day in those shoes. So I talked to a lot of our great partners, the CDWs, the WWTs, a lot of these companies that had a lot of golf sponsorship money already, whether they had their own tour stop or not. I talked to other people that had their own tour stops. And what worked and what didn't. Was this a winner? Is this something they're looking to get it more into, get a little bit out of? And I asked a lot of questions. And so I was in a discovery phase for the first couple of weeks. And I think I go back, if I pulled up a Word document, I think it's something around 42 pages of notes I took over all these different conversations, because it was just sponge time, right? I knew what I didn't know, which was anything about sports marketing for the most part. But I also like I said, I was hooked up with Jason early, and I was able to get a lot of answers from a lot of resources. And so what we're able to do is realize, I knew Fortinet, we place value on branding, but we're not going to spend just for the sake of branding. So I had to come up with something that would make the investment in the golf an offset. And that's where the security summit came in, that whole technology summit. And I kind of looked at it and said, if I can pull this off. So the way I was able to sell this to them, to the executives, and ultimately had to pitch this to the board of directors, was, if we can get $300 million of pipeline to show up, not net new pipeline. We knew we would generate net new pipeline. We knew the branding would have an impact. We knew the commercials that we got. There were a lot of assets you receive as a title sponsor. So the commercials definitely would have an impact. The social media would have an impact. All the naming rights, all of that stuff would have an impact. But a lot of that is clicks and we call whatever it's a marketing term. Like I said, I'm not the world's greatest marketing person. Impressions. There we go. Clicks, impressions, all that stuff. That's about a bit of a soft math. For us, it's about hard math. So right. if we could get 300 million in pipeline to show up, and if we could take our normal close rate, we normally close right around 33% of our pipeline. If those people that show up, if we can increase that from 33 to 39%, just a 6%, so what is that, a 20% increase, 6% more on 33, that would generate 6% of 300 million would generate 18 million in extra revenue that we weren't going to generate previously. And if we average about 60% profit margin on that, that's 10.8 million. That pays for the golf tournament. So I sort of made a deal with them saying, I will buy the golf tournament by way of throwing this technology seminar event summit, and one will pay for the other. And that's how we really got it through. I know for a fact, if I'd have walked in there and said, hey, I need $10 million to have our tournament, and stopped right there, they probably would have been laughed out of the room.
Sure. So
by going in with a business plan that says, here's what it costs, but oh, by the way, here's how we're going to pay for it. Now, the neat part is, the first year when we had COVID, obviously, and Delta had a spike in the middle of the year, which made it even a little more challenging. we had 330 people show up. We were shooting for 440. Now, we weren't going to lower the quality of who we were looking for. So it's not just a matter of filling the seats with anybody. It was a matter of, we're really looking, our persona on this was C-level, senior VP level. That's what we were really looking for, decision maker, executive level, because it's a VIP environment. I mean, you have the pro-am, you have honorary observer spots where you walk inside the ropes following the players down the course. You have French laundry dinner with Thomas Keller's 3-star Michelin restaurant, the finest wine and wineries in the world, and they can play golf while they're out there. Those experiences are very much VIP level experiences, senior vice president, C-level experiences. So we had 330 people showed up last year, and of that, 600 million in pipeline showed up. So what does that mean? It was double my projection. So instead of having to close an extra 6%, we only had to close an extra 3% to get to that 18 million / 10.8. So I guess you'd say year one was a raging success for the Fortinet Championship. I think when that happened, that's really when there was this aha moment out there of, wow, this is where we need to be as a company. We're 10,000 employees now. We're knocking on the door $5 billion. This is what we need to be doing.
And that's a great success story. And this may be a bit of a naive question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When you look at that and say, okay, we can do the summit and we can get all these folks out there, does somebody in the room say, well, why don't we just throw the summit and forget spending the millions of dollars on the golf tournament? But I'm assuming the golf tournament is a good driver of the attendance.
The summit is the steak, the golf tournament is the sizzle, right? So you need to have both in order to really have a successful event. So, I mean, certainly we could go out to our new beautiful worldwide headquarters in Sunnyvale and say, hey, we're going to do a summit. I think there's something about wine, food, PGA golf, Napa, the environment that is also an attractant. So when you it's that 1 + 1 = 3, right? So the one being Napa and everything it offers, the other one being our summit. When you put that all together, it became a really, really hard ticket to turn down.
So when you're putting those kinds of specific numbers against it and kind of letting everybody know that, hey, this we're building this so that it pays for itself, I'm imagining that you're going to be pretty rigorous on the measurement of that return, right? That it's not, I think one of the faults of sponsorships in the past has been people have said, well, we kind of assume that everybody that came out and had a good time is going to eventually write more business. But I'm again guessing that you wouldn't be able to get away with just assuming that you're actually have things in place to actually be able to measure those dollars.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part of the mentality I brought from sales, where everything's very, very finite, right? Like $1 of revenue is $1 of revenue. $1 of pipeline is $1 of pipeline. I come over to marketing, like I said, and you've got I call it the Fortis Snuggie of metrics. You've got impressions and clicks and view rates and all these things, but how do you really? So I focus, and I have my team now 100% focused on pipeline, right? That's what we can generate in marketing is pipeline. Ultimately, pipeline will result in sales. So but we're at the front end of the train trying to get as much pipeline on as possible, and at the back end, they're trying to turn that into revenue. So everything we do is driven by ROI pillars, and I'm not going to put my name down for that level of investment unless I know going in it's a sure bet. You can't assume it's going to be successful. I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong, is they see the sizzle and they forget about where's the steak, right? How are you going to make your money? And so, we talk about this drive to the Fortinet Championship. What we've done is we said, we're having a VIP event in Napa for 440 people, but there's a lot of customers. We have 600,000 customers globally. How do we take a kind of a mini version of that and take it out around in region? And so we have this great 18-wheeler. We call it the Ford Express. It's a multi-million-dollar showcase on wheels that goes out. It expands in both directions when it's parked. Becomes about 1,000 square foot of indoor air conditioning. It's got our racks and all of our equipment, all its AV stuff. It's quite impressive. So what we've done is we've taken that and we've picked 18 tour stops on the PGA Tour, and then we have suites Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at all of these tour stops. So what a typical day for the drive would be is someone would come meet us in the morning. We'll be in a parking lot or a hotel or something with this Ford Express. They get a cup of coffee, they get on, they learn about the new technologies that we have and this and that, spend about a half an hour. Then they get on a shuttle and they go over to the suite and spend the rest of the day at golf. So it's that integration of a VIP networking with each other, with technology and the PGA all mixed together becomes a great little formula of success. And that way we can get this out to 4,000 people throughout the year. But I'll tell you, we didn't just throw darts at a board at which events we were going to go to. We pulled the data out of Salesforce and said, I said, show me the total amount of pipeline. Show me how much closed one business. Show me how many Fortune 500 businesses there are. Show me how many total number of accounts we have in Salesforce within a 60-mile radius of each of the 35 domestic tour stops. And the ones that we felt like would generate the largest return were the events that we did. So that's how we're able to use data to drive decisions, knowing that you can go get $100,000 suite at one place where maybe you have about a third of the size of opportunity is another city. So while that may be a better tournament, and I could throw in, like out for example, because I've spent a lot of time in my life in Hilton Head. That's a great tournament, but it's not 60 miles near anything, right? To fly people in, get them together, it's nothing wrong with the tournament. It's a phenomenal tournament. For our purpose, that wouldn't fit well, even though it's a great tournament. So there's other areas that maybe not as exciting of a tournament, but it's in a better area. So that's what we did with the drive. And we actually apply that exact same logic to something like a player ambassador. Max Homa is our first player ambassador. Do we love the fact that, he's playing great right now in the tournament, but do we love that his name's on his sleeve? Absolutely. But that's not exactly what we're paying for. What we're paying for, what are the assets that Max offers in his contract? How many on-site visits do we get? So how many virtual? So the assets we have are virtual visits, on-site visits, stop-bys at tour stops that we're going to have the PGA, the drive, right? So he'll go up into the suite and say hi at X number. And I know every time he walks into the suite, if I say him walking into the suite is worth $5,000 in pipeline, and we have 30 customers in there, I can attribute $150,000 in pipeline now to each one of the times he stops in my suite. So you start adding that up and you go, okay, that math, and you look at it compared to the investment and say, this is a winner. Even though the byproduct, and me personally love to see the logo on TV, we're paying for the assets, we're paying for the ROI. What we get is the byproduct. The cherry on top is the logo and the imagery and the branding.
Icing on the cake, cherry on the top.
Absolutely.
All those good things. Jim, how about in terms of, since the company and everybody in all the different areas of the company hadn't done this before, was there a real, obviously kind of a mini education process to get it approved with senior executives, board of directors, but then how about kind of once you've got that, kind of rolling this idea out to the people in all of those, your 18 markets now this year that you're taking the experiential tour to, and really getting them to not necessarily buy in. I'm sure everybody was excited, and there's no real downside to it, but really getting them to understand, hey, this is an important driver of business for us. So is there any part of the process there that might be enlightening to share? Yeah.
So I think honestly, that's where Ticket Manager is king. So I talked a lot about pre-event setup and even some of the during event stuff but I didn't really talk a ton about post-event in the analytics that we're able to extract and see. Do we see a hockey stick reaction from pipeline generation? Are we able to see how many unused tickets? So like, for instance, the drive, there's 18 events. I'm looking back at the different reports that we're generating through our Salesforce data with the Ticket Manager integration, saying, with all the different metrics we're able to track and see increase in revenue, increase in buying patterns, increase in contacts added, how many are white space, all of these different things, used tickets. Each stop I can look at and say, what were my most successful stops? And probably pick the bottom 4 and maybe lop them off next year, pick 4 different stops because those were underperformers. Obviously, you have to do a bit more inspection of why they didn't perform the way you wanted them to. Right. But that's where there's some neat things that we get. And I forced, that was one of the, when I talked to you and I said, hey, I talked to some of the folks and some of our partners and stuff and was asking them, what do they do and what drives success? The one commonality that they were coming back with is use Ticket Manager. I'd never heard of it. I thought they were trying to tell me Ticketmaster. Right? I'm like, what? Doesn't make any sense. Oh, yes. And then so I started doing some research and I'm like, that's what I need. And that was part of the pitch to the executives and to the board was I'm going to measure success. So it's interesting the way we used it completely differently for the Fortinet Championship than we did for the drive. For the Fortinet Championship, you had to nominate a customer. And why would you nominate a customer? Back to my point, we're not just trying to fill seats. We wanted the best customers there. So we had over 3,000 nominations come through from our sales reps. They nominated them through the ticket manager integration in Salesforce. You have a contact in Salesforce, you go, you nominate, and they come in. And so I went through those nominations, and based on the company size, based on maybe their existing pipeline size, how much money they spent with us, the person's title, all of these different aspects, I was able to score each one of those records a 10 through a 1, 10 being that's a no-brainer. We want that person there. A 1's like, probably not the right target. So when we started doing our invites, we started out at 10 and then 9 and then worked our way down until we had the number where we wanted it and with the right people. So that's how we did our drive, and know that we capture all that data through Ticket Manager. What we did differently with the drive is we don't want to put all that work up front with putting in people in the Ticket Manager. We said, look, you go out and you get the invites to the people you want. We really kind of said it's your regional event. It's not as, we're spending 100 grand versus 11 million, right? So it's not as critical that I sit there and babysit or marketing does. This is your event. So I tell the sales directors and VPs, you are in charge of the quality control, not us. So they go out and send out their invite. And then when a customer registers, that's when they enter it in the Ticket Manager on the back end. Makes it a lot quicker and easier. And so that's where we leverage it differently. On the Fortinet Championship, on the front end is a nomination process. On the drive, on the back end is really just the back end of the registration process, but it's all about so we can capture that data. That was critical.
That's such an important thing. We talk whether it's Ticket Manager or some other way of capturing that data. Just the ability that we have to do that today is just exponentially, I think, increases the odds of doing these things and doing them well. Before I let you go, I think there are bound to be people listening, watching this podcast who maybe in a similar situation to where you were a year and a half ago, kind of thinking about this and just kind of starting out on the journey. Is there anything from the experience, anything you encountered in this first year that either was completely unexpected or something you really wish, boy, if I had known that on day one, it would have been a lot easier than finding it out on day 75. Just any advice you'd have to somebody who's again in your shoes or sitting where you were a year ago?
There's a couple of things that come to mind. Like, there's a saying, a failure to plan is a plan to fail, or an ounce of preparation is better than a pound to cure. So it's not what you do at the event. It's everything you do before or leading up to, even almost before as you're doing the blueprint. I think that's the most important thing. Before you ever put the first nail in the wood, it comes down to, what's the goal? For me, it was about driving, the ROI and making sure we were true to that and not use that to get it sold, but then deviate. That had to be the focus. So I knew we didn't have the expertise in-house. There was like I said, there was a lot of time put in up front to try to ask and try to learn as much as I could, but that was just me. But also there's companies out there, they do this for a living, right? This is what they excel at, whatever that is. It could be a specific, sport. It could be music. It could be whatever it ends up being. You have to be humble enough to realize that you're not the expert at everything. And there's people out there that are, and although that may cost money, I look at that as probably the best spend overall. So the money that the biggest spend overall is obviously the sports marketing itself. The money you spend to make sure you have the right trusted advisors and you've got the right information coming to you, and you have someone that you can lean on, and even if you know what you're doing to a degree and you feel like, but you have a sounding board that you can go back and forth. It's that, to me, is the smart money, right? The smart money is the money that gives you that accelerator effect on the big money. So I think too many times people fall in love with the big money item. They're going to get the flash, the sizzle. To me, it's still about that steak, and you have to have the ability to make sure it's being spent the right way, it's being measured, and you're maximizing. And there's some things we did wrong. Like, there's no doubt about it. I told my executives when they got out there to Napa. Actually, it's a funny little story. If we've got 2 seconds, I'll tell a funny little story. So I love my executives to death, but when they said I was running with it, they weren't lying. So I kept them up to speed on what was going on and this and that. And so we get out to Napa, and they had several of them had played the golf course before they'd been out to the Silverado. And I told them, hey, we're having a executive tour on, I think it was Sunday morning at 9 a.m. when we were out there, right before the tournament, before it starts. And I get there and I'm waiting, and one person shows up out of the 6 executives. So where's everybody else? They no showed me. Okay, what are you doing? I'm showing you where all this stuff's happening. So we get in the golf carts and we start going around. We're going to go out and show them the whole build out. And I run into two of our other executives. And I say, guys, we're doing the tour. Oh, well, we've been here before. And I'm basically like, yeah, I get it, but you haven't seen this. And so I kind of sort of almost maybe grabbed an arm and said, get in the golf cart, let's go. And so we go out, and then the branding, the imagery, the vision, like, and it's click, selfies, pictures of everything like this. It was so massively bigger than I think they even expected for us, because we had never done anything close to this. And so the funny part is we get back after doing the whole rounds, and we're in the suites on 18 and all this stuff. And we get back, and I see the other two that ghosted us. And the one executive that said, hey, I've been here before, goes up to me, guys, you have to take the tour. And I started laughing. I'm like, really? So, people think what they're buying versus what they're really getting. Like they thought, oh, we're going to have our name on a tournament. What they actually were able to see and understand, and also the part of the summit that pulled into it, that was the part that really blew them away. So I think when you pay for branding, you get branding. When you pay for, I like the idea of, yes, we know we're going to get the branding, but I really like that hard math. And I think that's what they were able to finally see, like in reality, is like, that's where we're going to make our money. I get it,
Yeah. And because quite frankly, if you were paying for branding, you were overpaying, if that's all.
Well, for sure.
at that price tag.
I told him when we got out there, I said, this will not be perfect. No one's going to pull off perfection in 5.5 months. I don't care how hard we try, but it will be great. Yeah. And that was a key too, to make sure you set expectations. Like, there are going to be hiccups, and boy, did we have hiccups. There was a water main break the one day right outside the main entrance, rerouting traffic everywhere. There was all sorts of, anything that could happen, but you realize in the grand scheme of it, the only people who didn't see not many people saw the duct tape, just the right. People involved. As long as the customers didn't see it, the partners, they had a great time. So.
Yeah. And that's, that goes along as part of the territory of live events. You can't control Mother Nature and acts of God and all of that kind of stuff. Jim, it's been a real pleasure hearing that story, and look forward to following what happens this year with all of your different partnerships. And maybe we can check in with you again and see how things are going at some point.
I'd love to. I appreciate you having me. I think it's a neat series that you do. This is really neat. Who knows what the next 13 months will bring?
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Jim, thanks again. And on behalf of everyone at Ticket Manager, thank all of you for watching and listening. And please join us for the next episode in the All Access interview series.